Welcome to Incredible Idaho. I'm Wayne Walker. Every year we learn new things about Idaho's wildlife, and people have new stories to share about enjoying the outdoors. Each year at this time, we create a special edition of our show featuring stories unique to 1997. It was a special year for anglers. For the first time since the mid-60s, fishermen cast their lines in the hopes of catching salmon. Long forgotten memories of these Idaho legends came alive again as an angler's hearty call of "fish on" echoed up and down many Idaho rivers. It's like a flashback to the Idaho of 35 years ago. Big water, big fish, and big grins. Anglers line up along the banks of the Little Salmon River every few feet, casting their lines into the turbulent stream.
I've just been fishing right along in here in this fast water and get right on the bottom, and I had 4 on here just in the last 5 minutes.
Willis Law came all the way from Utah for a chance at an Idaho salmon, and the trip has paid off both in fun and fish. So far, he's tagged 5 hatchery fish and released several wild ones, and every catch has been a challenge.
It feels like you got a horse trying to pull away when you're putting it in a trailer. Just really pull you hard. You got to put your drag right to 0 and just hang on for all you're worth. They get out of the hole and they're gone. You got to hold them right there in the hole.
What happened there?
That's an 80 fish, wild fish. You got to let them go.
Regulations require that any fish not raised in one of Idaho's 7 salmon hatcheries be released unharmed so it can swim further upstream to spawn naturally.
They're all feeling real good. They fight good. I love it. Whew.
Willis is not the only one who's loving it. The salmon season has been a huge success. Anglers from as far away as California and Texas have descended on the small town of Riggins, where the Little Salmon River meets the big one. And this is good news for area businesses, from motels and restaurants to tackle shops and gas stations.
Fishermen always bring in a lot of business. Makes everybody in town happy.
It's been the best summer they've had in years at the Riggins Motel, and in the hook, line, and sinker tackle shop, business is booming.
Anytime we get this many people in town, it always helps our little community here.
In fact, according to an independent study conducted by Ben Johnson Associates, if Idaho salmon runs were restored, it would generate $60 million annually and directly create about 1,000 jobs in our state. It's easy to imagine this economic boom when you see the enthusiasm of the anglers fishing here today.
Well, it's my first time, but I love it. I think I'm hooked.
What, have you had one on yet?
I've caught 2 real nice ones so far.
Tell me about it.
Well, the first one was about a 30-incher, and I had never caught a salmon out like this before, so it was great. It was wonderful. Made my heart pound. And the second one was just a little bit smaller, and it was thrilling too.
Fishing lines, backlit by the sun, form a sort of cross pattern as anglers alternately cast and reel in their lures. Their faces are a study in concentration, each one eagerly anticipating that telltale tug. Sometimes the stories are as big as the fish. Fisheries biologist Steve Pettit landed the 16-pound salmon you see him hauling out on his shoulder. Fortunately for him, Fish and Game photographer Rod Nichols has video to support most of his wild story.
It took me out of the hole where everybody lands them, and I had to climb a 70-foot cliff and couldn't even see the fish any longer and had about 200 yards of line out. And I ended up running downstream and swimming up to my neck several times for a mile. And then I finally just had to dig my heels into the gravel and say it's me or him, and somehow I kept him from going up through this quarter-mile long chute into downtown Riggins and landed it.
Steve's fish is a repeat. That means it already swam the gauntlet of fishermen once and ended up here at the Rapid River Fish Trap. After frustrating attempts at jumping these man-made falls, it got shunted into the trap. Then it traveled through a series of flumes until it landed here in this tank. This year's return is so strong that the hatchery has met its quota of fish necessary for good reproduction. So these surplus salmon are marked with a punch hole in their top fin. Then they're loaded into a fish truck to be hauled back downriver so anglers like Steve Pettit can have another chance at catching them.
Look at this. This is what it's all about.
It's nice to see smiles on everybody's faces. Little kids coming to the trap saying, I've caught a fish this big, and it's really good times. Yeah, great times for the fishermen, great times for the department. It's good to see these numbers again, the fish returning like they have.
But the future looks grim for Idaho salmon. There's too few of the small fish called smolts migrating out to the ocean this year. In fact, experts predict that this is the lowest number in 1,000,000 years.
We're predicting maybe only 300 wild fish come back in 1999 off this out-migration. And so perhaps the smolts that are released from this year's return may provide a fishery, but that's probably not going to happen until 2001.
But there's no guarantee those smolts will make it through the dams to the ocean and back in 2001. Angler Fred Edwards has been a reluctant witness to the demise of the salmon runs.
We're wearing out together.
If forced to guess, he would say he's caught around 150 salmon with his old rod, but that was back in the days when fish were plentiful and a salmon season like this was routine.
It's still a thrill. Get that bite, feel him hit, and have something on there as heavy as they are, give you a tussle like they do. Sometimes you lose them and you sit down and you want to cry. Sometimes you catch them and you want to yell with excitement. Even at my age, and as many as I've caught, it's still a thrill.
This year he's had a taste of what once was, but in some ways it's only served to underscore what we've lost in Idaho. This summer of 1997, we've had a small taste of what it was like in the old days of big water, big fish, and big grins. This is our Idaho salmon heritage. Now it's up to us to bring it back.
I think we're obligated to the generations of Idaho citizens and Americans in the future to give it our best shot. I really do.
And so here it is, engorged. This is an engorged Dermacenter andersoni, the Rocky Mountain wood tick.
Anyone who's trucked through the woods or crossed a field of sagebrush knows the telltale tickle of a tick searching for a comfy place to latch onto for a meal. In our next story, we'll actually go hunting for the little pests with a fellow who's made a career of studying insects.
Particularly in the spring, particularly on days of good high relative humidity, shortly after rain, when there's a lot of ground moisture, the air is humid so the ticks do not dry out. That's when they're more likely to quest, when they come up on the vegetation and sit there with their anterior appendages, you know, waving in the breeze, so to speak, awaiting somebody to come.
Dr. Charles Baker specializes in entomology, the study of insects. He's allowed this tick to crawl across his shirt to demonstrate the advantage of wearing pale or pastel-colored clothing in the field. As you can see, the dark body of the tick is easily visible. He also suggests pants that match the environment, forest green or khaki. And if you're in a heavy tick area, tuck your pants into your boots and spray some insect repellent on your clothing. Now, most of us are perfectly happy to go hiking and never encounter one of those nasty little ticks, but not so Dr. Baker. In fact, he's out here today actually trying to hunt down one or two tiny pests to take back to the laboratory.
What I'm doing is flagging, basically. It's using a muslin sheet, white muslin is something that a tick can grab a hold of easily.
Although ticks have poor eyesight, they're attracted to change in light intensity when something white crosses their field of vision. The white underbellies of deer and elk are natural targets for a questing tick.
If you watch deer that are undisturbed, they'll spend a lot of time in one very limited area, moving slowly, so the tick doesn't have to just literally grab a passing host. They've got time, they're patient too, and they get aboard. And then they move. They just keep moving up the limbs, onto the trunk, and they keep going towards the head and back as their favorite areas where the animal's less likely to dislodge them, especially up around the ears. That's one of their favorite places. That's where I routinely check my dog.
So how do you remove a tick if you find one? Well, most of us would do exactly what this woman is doing. Uncover the tick, in this case it's burrowed into the coat of her dog, grab it with our fingers, and pull it off. But that's wrong.
Never, never, never grab a tick barehandedly, pull it off, and then squeeze it between your fingers. That is an absolute no-no.
Imagine Dr. Baker's hand as the surface of your skin. The syringe is a tick that burrowed beneath.
And this is the tick filled with blood that it has taken from us and mixed with its body secretions in its gut. If you grab that tick to remove it, this is like a syringe, and you're going to put pressure on that tick and force fluids down the pipe into your body like that.
Hot matches, Vaseline, kerosene, the various methods we've all heard about will have the same effect, forcing the tick to deflate its mouth parts, consequently injecting the fluid into your system.
So what you want to do is take a pair of forceps. Now, I've used big forceps here to go along with our simulated tick. And you slide those forceps right along your skin or the skin of your dog, clamp right there on those mouth parts. You may get a little fluid, but you're minimizing the amount of fluid going in. You've clamped down, and now you push against the tick and push it off. And that is the correct procedure.
If you don't have a forceps handy, Dr. Baker suggests using 2 coins to avoid touching the tick. Afterwards, apply a topical sterilizing solution like betadine. A Rocky Mountain wood tick, the type you're seeing here, can pass on a rare disease called Rocky Mountain spotted fever. It's estimated that only 1 in 100,000 ticks carry the disease, but if you find yourself feeling poorly after a tick bite, you should go to a physician, because if untreated, the disease can be fatal.
Lyme disease, fortunately for us here in Idaho, is a rare, very rare event. At this time, there's probably only 1 or 2 cases, if that, contracted in Idaho in a given year.
Our state has very few of the smaller ticks that carry Lyme disease, but even in Idaho, you can contract a condition called tick paralysis from a bite. So be sure to check your children for ticks if you spent time in the outdoors. Now, if you look closely, you can see that a tick has 8 legs like a spider. This means they are a member of the arachnid family. The female Rocky Mountain wood tick has a dark body and a small white protective plate called a scutum.
She's in a defensive mode here. She's pulled in her legs and is feigning death. And if she thinks everything's okay, she'll then begin to move again. And there she goes, trundling off in search of whatever she wants.
She's probably looking for a large host animal like a deer or elk to take a full blood meal, enough to nourish 3,000 to 7,000 eggs. If she's successful, she'll look like this when she drops off.
And so here it is, engorged. This is an engorged Dermacenter andersoni, the Rocky Mountain wood tick. And in a matter of a week or 2, she'll begin to produce eggs, and we'll do that over a span of several weeks, a couple months maybe at most.
In her distended state, it's difficult for her to right herself. But when she's placed on her belly, she somehow slowly pulls herself along the lip of the microscope. The eggs look like this. You can see among the eggs some seed ticks or larvae that have already developed their first set of 6 legs.
So little ticks tend to prefer mice and other small mammals like ground squirrels, and they take their blood meal, and then they drop off, and then they molt their skeleton, and now they have 8 legs.
Ticks go through another nymph stage where they seek larger hosts like rabbits and badgers before completing the 2-year cycle and becoming a full adult. So ticks tend to be concentrated in areas where you'll find all 3 kinds of host animals. Usually, the mixed brush and grasses of deer and elk winter range where small animals like ground squirrels are also present.
Okay, here's our male tick with a hard plate over his whole body. The back end is not dark and soft like in the female.
The male tick will never become distended like the female because he won't be bearing eggs, but his bite can be just as dangerous. So next time you head out on a hike, remember, wear your khakis, use your bug spray, and pack along your forceps.
Come on, girl. Careful of the fence. You're savvy. Heel.
A lot of people say, well, how can you use a bird dog with a falcon? And the fact of the matter is they don't smell like game birds, so they don't try to retrieve them.
The ancient practice of falconry predates modern bird hunting methods. Many falconers are avid traditionalists, but Bruce Hawk likes to mix it up a little. He pairs up his peregrine falcon with his hunting dog. The result is a communion of the dog's and bird's natural instincts as they work together to hunt the elusive chukar.
We'll let Jakey out. Come on, sport. He's the radar. And this is an English pointer, kind of dog that's bred for big open country, long distance running. You can see the way they're built. Nice deep chest on them, lots of long hair. He's kind of a tall one for an English pointer.
At first take, the combination of a falcon and a bird dog seem a bit bizarre. One would expect the dog to be all over the bird.
You know, a lot of people say, well, how can you use a bird dog with a falcon? And the fact of the matter is they don't smell like game birds, so they don't try to retrieve them. They learn respect when they're puppies. You know, if a falcon nips them on the nose, they decide that's not a good idea to get too close. And as you can see, this falcon is very tolerant of the dog. I mean, it's his dog, so it's a real good working relationship. Being a good boy. Heel. Heel.
The concept of a pointing dog uncovering game birds for a falcon may seem unconventional. The fact of the matter is that many pointing and flushing dogs were actually bred specifically to work with falcons long before firearms were even created.
I'll wait till we get up on top to turn him loose. It's like any other kind of primitive art form. It's a handicap to go out and chase game, well, really on their own level. I mean, we're using pointing dogs, which are highly specialized, and we're using falcons, which are highly specialized, to hunt a very highly specialized game bird. Find a bird.
It's perfect chukar habitat. Mountain ridges towering over deep canyons with sagebrush for escape cover and grassy slopes for the chukars to feed.
I don't believe he's pointing already. Jake, find the birds. We might be able to push him down the slope.
The dog is adamant, holding his point staunchly. There's no doubt something is in the bushes ahead of him.
Okay, I'm going to take the hood off and then he'll go.
The peregrine falcon surveys his surroundings, then spreads his wings and flies. He floats in slow, lazy circles over the ridgeline, gaining altitude gradually. He'll climb to a level of about 1,000 feet above the earth before diving into his prey.
You see, the real beauty is having a dog that will find the birds and then hold the point for a long time, because it takes several minutes for the falcon to really get up at a nice altitude.
When you hear Bruce shouting, keep your eye on the falcon as it dives into the flying chukars.
Hey! Hey! Whoa, he tagged one. He knocked the chukar in, and the chukar is hiding in that sagebrush right there. So we're gonna let the falcon go back up nice and high. See, he's fired up, he's ready to go now. And I'm gonna walk in there and get the dog to point this thing, and I'll put him up again.
Falcons have two main ways of catching prey. One is to actually grab them with their claws while in flight. The other is to hit them hard, stunning their quarry and knocking them to the ground. Falcons can dive in speeds up to 150 miles an hour, so you can imagine the impact when they hit their prey. Watch again as Bruce flushes the hidden chukar.
Hey! Hey!
The chukar escapes again, flying across the valley. The whole scenario is a window to the wild. Hundreds of times a day, this dance of predator and prey is played out in nature without human witnesses. It's the instinct of survival. Prey escapes and predators go hungry, or prey is caught and one dies so the other can live. Today, we have the rare opportunity to see this necessary and natural relationship as it unfolds.
So what we'll try to do now is wait till the falcon goes back up, and then I'm going to go over here and try to push him downhill across that grass. We'll see if it works.
Bruce and his dog Jake go in search of the hidden chukar, while above them, the falcon climbs the sky. It doesn't take long before Jake is on the scent, and the dance begins once more. This time, the predator is won, knocking the chukar from the air. The falcon returns to the ground and finishes the kill.
Yeah, he's such a good bird dog. We'll keep him around, won't we? Yes, we will. Well, the falcon gods are smiling, and we managed to catch a chukar, which is a pretty exceptional day in the world of falconry. What he's doing is he's caught him here, and he's just going to start to plume him. And isn't that a beautiful hawk on a beautiful partridge? I mean, what a deal. I just don't believe we got one.
There are no ground rules. So as we go along, we have to make sure, first of all, that no person gets hurt, that we're not doing any damage to those cows or their calves.
Buffalo herds living in Yellowstone National Park are under fire. Many of the animals carry the disease brucellosis, which causes livestock and some wildlife to abort their fetuses. In an effort to rid the bison of the disease, a new vaccine is being tested at the Wildlife Health Lab in Caldwell. The experimental project requires calves to be captured and tested within hours of their birth, and that's not easy with mom around.
If we can get the mother to go down, I want to get on the bison first on its head, get size covered, okay? If she throws me aside, that's okay, but once I have control of her, maybe one of you guys can...
It's sort of like a pregame pep talk. Wildlife veterinarian Dave Hunter and his team are discussing the game plan. The opposing squad, over 30 pregnant female bison, are big, husky players with massive shoulders.
First rule is nobody gets hurt. No heroics required. Second rule is if you see something that bothers you about what's happening with the bison, don't be afraid to speak up.
Nothing like this project has ever been done before with wild bison, so each step in the process is a stride into new territory.
Okay, slow down, Emmy.
It began last winter in Yellowstone National Park. Scientists estimate that at least half of the bison population carries the cattle disease called brucellosis. This year's severe weather drove large numbers of the buffalo out of the park to seek forage in lower elevations. Over 1,000 of these animals were either shot outright or sent to slaughter in compliance with state law. Although it's never been documented, the fear is that the big shaggy beast may transmit the disease to domestic livestock, threatening the brucellosis-free status of the beef industry in the states that surround the park. In March, 35 of the doomed animals were rounded up and then separated from the rest of the herd. Each was a female that had tested negative for brucellosis, and every one of them was pregnant. They had been rescued from the slaughterhouse to take part in an experimental project testing the safety of a vaccine for brucellosis. A third of the bison were injected with a harmless saline solution. These would make up the control group. The other 2/3 of the animals were vaccinated with 2 different dosages of the brucellosis vaccine RB51. Sporting ear tags and horn protectors made from garden hose, the big beasts were loaded into a cattle truck and hauled 900 miles from Gardner, Montana to the Wildlife Health Lab in Caldwell, Idaho. The federal government hopes to eliminate brucellosis in domestic livestock by 1998, and at that point, it is believed the greater Yellowstone ecosystem will remain the only area in the United States where the disease is still prevalent. But the hope is that eventually Yellowstone's wildlife will be free of the disease too. This safety study on the vaccine RB51 is one of the first small steps towards that goal.
Okay, remember, kind of try not to move around much in the back of the rigs.
A new baby bison was born sometime in the night, and the little calf is doing its best to stick close to mom. The scientists need to somehow separate the pair from the rest of the unruly herd, shoot a drugging dart into the mom, and then grab the calf. Blood will be drawn from both the cow and calf, and then various further samples will be taken from each animal. These will be tested to determine if the vaccine affected the birthing process.
Breakfast!
The tentative game plan is to drive the feeding trucks into the enclosure and then use them as a protective barrier to keep the rest of the herd away from the scientists as they work the cow and calf.
Are we having to be innovative as we go along? Absolutely. We are able to do a project similar to this in the field, to have 33 animals in close proximity and try to get the same information on a vaccine study has never been done. There are no ground rules. So as we go along, we have to make sure, first of all, that no person gets hurt, that we're not doing any damage to those cows or their calves, and that we can do it in a manner to justify us having these animals here. So every day we kind of change protocol to see what works easier.
Is that her right there staring at us? Okay, now she's got her head down again. Okay, just kind of pull forward.
Research projects in Yellowstone Park have shown that when a bison is darted and begins to show signs of weakness, the rest of the herd tends to rally round the stricken individual, a situation the veterinarian team is trying to avoid today. But the veterinarian team gets a big break. The baby bison has wandered alone into one of the holding pens, and within minutes, Dave Hunter has the bawling calf in his arms.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Okay.
The team springs into action, worried that the calf's calls will alert the mom.
Okay, we'll get our samples real quick.
Veterinarians begin to take their samples as a little male protests.
Well, one of the objects or goals we have for the project on the safety portion of the project is to make sure the vaccine is a live bacteria. Make sure the vaccine does not cause any problems to the dams or the mothers or the calves.
Okay.
When all the samples are taken, the little guy is released.
Well, the mother will come back in for him.
Mom's on the way, and the first stressful day of testing newborn calves is over.
Ooh, he wasn't as weak as I thought. He was actually a pretty heavy old boy. Okay, I think our job's done for the day. I think I'll go home and probably die of a slow, hypertensive, cerebral aneurysm. What do you think?
Three weeks later, processing newborns and their moms has become routine. Both sides are a little more accustomed to the rules of the game. By now, all but a few of the cows have given birth. The veterinarian team has perfected the darting technique, and as for the bison herd, well, they've learned to ignore the whole process, placidly feeding while the scientists work the mom and new calf. There's been a few aborted fetuses, a couple of stillbirths, and several weak calves died shortly after being born. But until all the tests are in, there is no way of determining whether these cases were due to the vaccine. So for now, the game stands at a tie. The real victory will be the discovery of a safe vaccine that's an effective instrument in finally eliminating the disease brucellosis in our nation's wildlife. Watching wildlife is a thrill, and sometimes half the fun of seeing wild animals is the trip getting there. Now, this is certainly true for the mountain goats that live in the rocky cliffs above Lake Pend Oreille. Thanks to the creative genius of outfitter Josie Merrithew, there's a new way for people to experience the wonders of wildlife. Oh, thank you. A rainy morning greets the Cooper family as they arrive for a wildlife watching adventure. The kids climb on board the Shawnee-Dees as excited about the boat as what lies on the other side of the lake. And we're off. On the bridge, Captain Curtis guides the boat carefully out into the open water. A light, steady rain continues to fall, but it doesn't hamper the view of Lake Pend Oreille. It's a spectacular sight, with low clouds swallowing the tops of the mountains and reflecting in the gray waters. It's even better viewed from the cozy, mahogany-paneled comfort of the bridge.
I always thought if I could stay warm and dry, you can have a good day. And I guess that's the hardest thing, you could convince people that they can stay warm and dry.
It's just under a 2-hour cruise to our destination, and in the warm, dry cabin below, the Cooper kids are busy charting the course.
And where we're going today is a place called Bernard Peak, which is at the very south end of the lake. And when we get there, this is where Bernard Peak is, we're going to see, all along in here, hopefully we're going to see some mountain goats.
Well, that seems easy enough. Simply head south. Move over, Captain Curtis. This is a job for a 7-year-old.
So you pick that spot, pick a spot on the ground, on the cliff, and you head straight for it, the same spot all night. You got a spot?
Bernard Peak looms straight ahead, and suddenly all hands are on deck, peering through binoculars, searching for the first sign of goats.
See that white line kind of? That's a mama goat and a baby goat laying down. They're just snoozing up there.
The goats are descendants of animals transplanted here in the early 1960s. Although this is not historic mountain goat habitat, the animals seem to have done quite well.
We don't have any real traditional summer habitat here. This is really low elevation, very atypical habitat for mountain goats, and that's really why they didn't occur here naturally.
In the heat of summer, the goats try and escape the warmth by hiding beneath overhanging rocks. But on a day like today, they're clearly visible as they trot along the trails.
This is an unhunted population primarily because it is a popular wildlife viewing opportunity for folks. People have observed as many as 25 to 30 goats at one time up on the hillside certain times of the day.
The big slide on the right side of like 2 little chocolate dots laying down. Okay. There'll be like 2 patches of snow, and there'll be them laying down.
As a teacher, Ben's mom, Kathy, sees more to this trip than just a fun outing for the kids. It's an education.
It's so important for them to experience wildlife instead of just reading about it. And it's so impressionable on them. They take it back to the classroom and they can write about it. They can tell about it. So much more potent than just standing up and giving a report from material that they've read.
Okay, we're not going to go too far. We're just going to cruise along the coastline and see if we can get up a little closer to see the goats.
It's the first time kayaking for the whole family, but that doesn't daunt outfitter Josie Merrithew. Most of her novice clients are amazed at how comfortable they feel after a few basic tips, especially kids.
They're really stable, but you can do this with your hips in your kayak, and it's just going to stay right there with your hips. Okay, here's your paddle. Have you paddled before?
No. Oh, kids do great. They're actually easier first-time paddlers than adults. Once you give them a little education, they get over their little bit of tension that they have, they just take right to it. We have them standing up and tipping them over and climbing back in. They just love it.
Even little Ben gives it a go, power paddling his dad around in their double kayak. But most impressive is 9-year-old Daniel, who takes to paddling like the proverbial duck to water.
You having fun?
Yeah.
It has all the elements of a great day in the outdoors. Fresh air, exercise, wildlife watching, and then the warm, dry haven of the good ship Shawnee when it's over.
Are you cold?
It really expands our horizons in terms of trips, so someone coming along has the best of both worlds. They get to go on a classic boat tour of the lake, and then they get to slip off into a little kayak and be the captain of their own boat.
The winter of 1996 and 97 is destined for the record books. More snow fell this past year than any winter in the last 30 years. Reports of deer and elk on the brink of starvation prompted a public outcry to feed them. Now, winter feeding is a complex issue of human compassion, the laws of nature, and biologists' understanding of wild animals. Incredible Idaho's guest host, Jack Hemingway, describes an effort to keep the animals healthy, but still wild.
The elk are the most visible. They stand starkly silhouetted against a snowy white hillside, motionless in the bitter cold. Naturally, our hearts are moved. We feel the cold and imagine ourselves in their place. But our bodies are not made to endure severe weather without protection. Our skin doesn't collect and contain heat like the thickened and insulated coats of deer and elk. Our feet aren't constructed with hooves, natural buffers against the ice. And our bodies don't use the energy in the same manner, deliberately slowing our metabolic rate to preserve it. But the feelings of compassion remain, and despite the fact that wildlife has survived winters without us for thousands of years, we feel compelled to help. Starvation is one of nature's laws, but a difficult one for man to accept. Our first instinct is to set up areas to feed the animals, and that is where we must proceed delicately and with the utmost caution. In our haste to help, we may do more damage than good. Artificially gathering large numbers of wild animals in an area can be an invitation for disease, and this is a concern for both the livestock industry and the Idaho Department of Fish and Game. Another concern is that winter feeding results in animal populations staying artificially high, causing the wildlife to outgrow the winter habitat. This could happen near the small town of Stanley in the Sawtooth Mountains.
We're at 1,000 elk right now, and we're trying to reduce that population through a combination of hunting and transplanting the animals out.
Although the sun is shining brightly, it's an icy cold morning in the Stanley Basin. By 9 o'clock, the temperature has climbed to a frigid 22 degrees below zero. The cold is biting, nipping at exposed flesh and attacking vulnerable fingers and toes. The early morning light casts long blue shadows across the snow as the trapping crew begins to work. Inside the enclosure is a lone elk, the first to be trapped in an operation that will eventually try and move nearly 100 animals to better winter range.
Come on back, Mark.
Eventually, everything is in place, and the gate swings open. The elk hesitates, and then sensing escape, trots through. It's instantly caught in the chute and immobilized so the scientists can mark it with ear tags.
Looks good. Ear tags 390 and 391.
It's a female calf. The ear tags will identify her as an elk that was moved from the Stanley Basin if she's ever caught again or taken by a hunter. Then the gate is raised, and she instantly bolts for the shadowy security of the horse trailer.
Close it.
Okay, watch your fingers. Now.
Now we'll go down to the next trap, and we've got 3 elk there, and we'll try to get those out of the next trap. Put them in the same trailer.
It's just a short drive down the highway to the second trap site, a large corral set up adjacent to a hot spring. Elk are everywhere, feeding along the stream bed and loafing on the hillside above.
There's way too many elk here than what this little hot spring can support, which is kind of what causes the troubles out here. There's too many elk around for these little areas, and they just kind of hang out and wait till little shoots come up, little green shoots. And
the elk are being fed in this area to relieve the pressure and also to get them acclimated to the corral. The largest bundles of hay are placed inside the enclosure to entice the animals into the trap.
We've got 3 in there now, and a cow and a couple of calves. And, so we got to work these a little differently than we did the other one. Cow that's kind of caught like this, they can get pretty owly. So, it's nothing for them to run around a few times and figure out there's no way out except through you. So
Mark is about to find out that he's been way too optimistic. He has clearly underestimated the character of this particular cow elk. A better description might be an elk that's too smart, too stubborn, and far too tough to be duped into going for a ride in a horse trailer.
Anytime you're ready, guys.
The two calves go like clockwork. The gate opens and the first one trots out of the corral and into the chute.
Just kind of back off and let her fuss around. She'll.
Her ears face forward and she emits a series of high-pitched barks, all part of a defensive stance against a perceived threat.
See, Mark? Wide open with the door there. Give her a view.
Her defiance is a stirring reminder that these are wild animals and that we need to respect that fact. That we have an obligation to carefully weigh any decisions that interfere with nature's laws.
Come on. Come on. Let's go.
This cow knows that the door is the way to freedom, and she's not going to be bluffed into going through the gate behind her. Mark decides that too much time has been wasted on one animal, and she's set free. She leaves quickly, moving with a kind of subdued dignity across the stream to join the rest of the herd. As the trap is being reset, the truck hauling the three calves starts on the road to lower elevations. It will be a 5-hour trip, north through the town of Salmon, and then west down the Salmon River Road to better winter range. As the crew travels, they receive word that 25 more elk have been captured in the trap back in Stanley and are being loaded up for the long journey to the release site. It's nearly dark by the time the first truck arrives. The three calves hesitate as the door swings open, then crowd to the back of the trailer.
Come on.
But with a little encouragement, they spring free one by one, running off into the night.
Okay, come on, little one.
Now they'll feed on their own with no help from man. Now they are truly wild.
Here's a little known fact. More than 400 different species of fish and wildlife live in Idaho. Now, few states can match this kind of diversity. For our last story, we want to share some little known facts about some of Idaho's wild residents. In Idaho's remote, craggy mountains where few people dare to go, the secretive wolverine makes its home. They are solitary animals and ferocious when they are cornered. A recent study revealed that wolverines have an incredible sense of smell, able to locate rodents under 6 feet of snow and then tenacious enough to dig them out. Like all scavengers, wolverines are opportunistic. They will eat insects and berries or scavenge for carcasses, a characteristic required to survive in an unforgiving environment like Idaho's mountains. The beaver is a selective animal. It likes the bark of small trees and the safety of a well-made den. Its highly stylized lifestyle has turned many free-running streams into a series of ponds and a soggy meadow. The ponds serve as an escape route from predators such as coyotes and bobcats, and their lodges can only be reached by an underwater entrance. At one time, beavers could be found up and down Idaho's waterways.
5-6 feet.
Sturgeon still plow the waters of Idaho's rivers, as they have for thousands of years. At one time, the large, slow-moving fish could live to be 100 years old and grow in excess of 15 feet. But Idaho sturgeon populations have seriously declined. These fish are as mysterious as they are old, and slowly, scientists are finding what these dinosaurs of the deep need if they are to survive. 14 different species of bats live in Idaho. Some like the desert. Others prefer the forests and the mountains. While most people believe bats are dangerous, the truth is much different. They are shy, nocturnal animals and avoid contact with people. An often overlooked benefit is that a single bat can eat up to 600 insects in an hour. Few people know that bats live for a long time, sometimes as long as 30 years. Bald eagles have made a comeback from the brink of extinction. More than 900 eagles spend the winter on Idaho's lakes and rivers that promise good fishing. Some eagles have set up housekeeping along Idaho's rivers. While some birds prefer secluded areas for nesting, it's not uncommon for them to build nests high above but close to human activities. These days, birders can usually catch sight of eagles along the Boise River, the South Fork of the Snake, and Lake Pend Oreille in Idaho's Panhandle. Among the rocky mountaintops where eagles fly, mountain goats are right at home. They have a pad on their hooves that spreads out a little to help them cling to narrow footholds and slippery rocks. To survive winter in these rugged mountains, goats resort to eating moss and lichens on the rocks as well as grass and shrubs. These hardy animals evolved to move gracefully among the rocks and thrive in this extreme habitat. The splendid diversity of Idaho's wildlife provides people many opportunities to see a bit of Idaho's wild heritage. I hope you enjoyed our program and will venture out for some sightseeing of your own. Goodbye, and thanks for being with us.